Hey, happy Sunday, everybody. Tim from Alpha Wolf Trading coming at you with this week's market overview and a few stocks to watch for next week. Before I get rolling with that, I just want to give everybody a shout out about the interview I'm doing with Maj from Geo Investing on Monday. If you can make it, it's 1:30 Pacific time, Pacific Standard Time. Uh, if you can make it, try to make it. This guy has really impressed me. Extremely successful in the microcap world, but his due diligence and what he goes through to find opportunity, I think, is can be applied to any size company. And really sharp cat, one of the best in the business in my mind, and I think you could learn a lot from him. So if you can make it on Monday, check it out. If you can't make it to the event, I am going to try and record it, and I'll probably put it out. But if you can't make it, make sure you follow Maj at on Twitter at Maj Geo Investing. It puts out some really quality content. So I think it's going to be a fantastic interview. I think people are going to learn a lot, and definitely think it will be worth your time. So check us out on Monday. You can register right here on the blog for it on Monday afternoon. Very excited about that. All right, so let's go ahead and get started with taking a look at the economic calendar for next week. We actually have some economic data that could impact the markets, right? So we've got PMI flash, PMI market services, Case-Shiller home price index, consumer confidence index, and then weekly jobless claims, GDP revision, pending home sales, durable goods orders, core capex, personal income, consumer spending, core inflation, and consumer sentiment. So we do have some economic data that can impact the markets next week. We'll see how that plays out. And we've got a pretty light earnings calendar. We'll get to that in a minute. There are a few names that I do think are of interest, and they are on the list. So we'll get to that in a second. But let's take a look at the overall indexes and where we look technically. So one of the more fascinating or more interesting looking sectors to me is the IBB. It's actually kind of flagging out here. We're getting a pretty tight wedge formation, and we're hanging out right here at the 50-day and the 200-day. So I think biotech is kind of interesting, could be a good focus for next week. Dust, gold actually pulled back a little bit last week, and Dust is bearish ETF. Now there's JNUG and Nugget. For bullish ETF, you see gold start to rip. Maybe those are opportunities for short-term trades. And if gold starts to tank, Dust and J-Dust are the two to maybe keep an eye on. IWM. So one of the things that is a little bit concerning to me, and I think looks technically challenged, are some of these indexes that look like we may be putting in a potential double top. So we've got a potential double top here. We are above the 50-day and the 200-day, but we had a pretty nice move in a very short period of time. Just wondering if maybe we drift back down and we test this 50-day, 200-day as potential support. We lose that, then we potentially come down and retest this trend line. So I wouldn't be surprised if we, it just seems like we're kind of stalling. We've had a big move in a short period of time, and that's not a big shock to see something like that happen. Again, with the double top on IYT, right? We had almost to the penny, a perfect double top, and pulling back, testing the 50 and 200-day moving averages. Let's see if we can hold on to those this week. If we break below them, then I think we're coming back down to potentially test this trend line. QQQs, same thing, right? Real close to a double top formation here, pulling back, testing the 50-day. And if we lose this trend line, the next area of potential support may be down here at this 200-day moving average. So we'll see what happens with the QQQs. But looks like we're taking a little breather there. SMH, same thing. Got potential double top and pulled back a little bit on Friday, right? So we've got a gap that could potentially fill, come down and test the 50-day, and then if that doesn't hold, then we've got this trend line that could act as potential support for a bounce. SPY, again, a potential double top formation, pulling back. Maybe we test this 50-day and we find support and bounce, but things just look a little bit overbought, and they look a little bit tired. And what's key is, if we do pull back, how far do we pull back? Where do we find support? How much, what kind of volume are we looking at if we get a pullback? Maybe we just consolidate here. We chop around a bit. We'll have to see how it plays out. But I do have some concerns about the technical formations that we have in a lot of these sectors. And let's see, TVIX, UVXY, right? So we haven't had a lot of volatility. That could pick up, and I think these are, we should keep an eye on that for next week. There could be some trading opportunities. We're one tweet away from either, ripping to new highs if we got a deal with China. I think that would be a very positive thing for the markets. And, if things get worse, right, then we could actually see some volatility. So let's see what happens next week. But UVXY and TVIX are definitely on my radar. Aerospace and defense, which has been one of the hottest sectors, the strongest sector, I think, for quite a while now. Did get up into it broke through this trend line here, new all-time highs, pulling back a little bit. Now we're testing the top of this trend line. What was resistance, we'll see if that acts as support. Aerospace defense, I think we got a lot of names that have had some really nice runs. If you're taking profits, I wouldn't blame you. I wouldn't get completely out of the space. But maybe we see a pullback to this trend line, see if that holds as support. But aerospace defense still looks really strong. Let's see if it can hold up in this area, though. Home builders, we've got KB Homes reporting this week. That's been a very strong sector as well. KB Homes actually has a pretty good looking chart. I think I put it on my list for this session. For next week, we'll take a look at it. But home builders actually looking pretty good. We get some data out this week. Maybe we pull back, we test the 50-day as support. But sector actually looks pretty good as well. XLB building materials, another sector that's looking good, but potential double top here, right? Got a potential double top there. See if the 50-day holds a support. If not, the next area could be this trend line. Energy had a big run and came up right into this trend line resistance, actually up into about, took out the 200-day, pulling back. The question is, will we find some support around the 50-day moving average, or are we going to head back down to the bottom of this channel one more time? I don't know. It's been a very tough space to try and find a bottom in, but there were some trading opportunities in it recently. Might need a bit more time to consolidate the move that it just had. Financials pulling back, another one that's got a potential double top look, right? So looking for it maybe to pull back and test the 50-day moving average. XLI Industrials also has a bit of a double top formation there, pulling back. Broke out over this little resistance area here, pulling back. So far, it doesn't look like we're able to hold that. Let's see if we can pull back to the 50-day, see if it acts as support there. XLP actually looks pretty darn constructive. Got up to the top of this channel, nice consolidation over to the 50-day moving average. See if that holds as support, but it's actually got a pretty good looking setup here and could be one to keep an eye on for continuation. XLV above the 50-day moving average. some room to go to get up into a double top type situation or area of resistance. I think healthcare is a sector maybe you want to keep an eye on, along with that, the biotech space, right? So those are kind of my two main areas. This consumer staples, though, I do have to admit, looks pretty darn good. XLY, consumer discretionary, pulling back and testing the 50-day moving average after a double top, right? Another double top. XOP, oil and exploration, got up and tested this area of price resistance, this little trend line pulling back. You know, everything, I mean, this 50-day is still declining. We'll see if it can find some support at the 50-day and bounce, but oil and exploration still looks pretty weak. There was a nice trading opportunity in that one, but are we going to come back down and test these lows? I don't know. We do have a double bottom there. We'll see how it plays out, but XOP I think could be challenging. And then retail, right up into the trend line, found resistance, pulling back, looking for potential support somewhere around the 50-day moving average, broke below the 200-day. So retail looks a little challenged in the near term as well. So look, I think you still need to be somewhat cautious. We've got, we've got earnings season, which is pretty much wrapping up, but then we've got another one that's right around the corner. You got October, which is typically a tough month, but then again, so is September supposed to be a tough month for the markets, and September has actually been holding up pretty well. So we'll see what happens. But I will say this, let's take a look at the T2107, T2108. Hold on one second. Take a look at those real quick. Remember, SIFT 70 up into the 70 area, we're kind of overdone. Maybe we see a pullback. And the T2107, the percentage of stocks above the 200-day moving average, we got up into the 60 area. We're starting to pull back a little bit. The T2108, we are right at the 70 mark. So, maybe like I said, we don't necessarily have to see a dramatic pullback. Maybe we just see some consolidations, a slight drift downward for a couple of weeks or so, right? And kind of work off this overbought condition. I don't know. We'll have to see how it plays out. T2106, McClellan, we were up here in the 160 where there was just a lot of complacency, right? Now we're starting to pull back. We'll see if that continues next week. That's kind of like a fear indicator. If we start to get, below 100 and stuff like that, maybe we start to see a little bit of fear come into the market. So, all right. So with that being said, let's take a look at this week's list of stocks off of what we have coming up for earnings. So RBZ, this is not a good looking chart, right? It's done a reverse split not long ago. Low float, small float. Had a little bit of a pop on Friday with some volume, but keep in mind we had quad witching, so any volume spikes that you saw on Friday, I wouldn't pay that much attention to them. So it is testing the 50 EMA. It is breaking over the $2 holla. I believe these guys report, hold on a second, make sure. They report Monday before the open. So this actually could be, getting some action ahead of the open on Monday. I certainly would not chase the gap. This thing, if you look back here, has a tendency to pop and flop. So be careful with that, but it could set up for an intraday trading opportunity. And it's had some pretty amazing moves, right? So could have some kind of a squeeze play in this thing. Just don't chase the gap blindly, right? Look for some kind of a clean intraday setup if you're going to look to trade it. All right, DYNT. So here's another extremely thin stock. medical device company. Insider buys, 2 and change area, pretty decent size. It has looks like got an activist investor that's gotten involved here. I think they might have just gotten a new CEO as well. Let me make sure on that one. Hold on a second. DYNT. Yeah, they just promoted a new CEO. So, look, this thing's been in a downtrend for quite a long time. Let's go back to the longer term time frames. It's been around for a while. I mean, this thing was actually up over $20 at one time. It does not appear as, oh yeah, they did a reverse split. So not a real attractive chart. Let me see if we're at all-time lows. We're real close. Actually, looks like we've been quite a bit lower. I don't know. New CEO, right? Maybe what we've got going on here is a potential double bottom, right? Looking for a trend line break. I wouldn't chase this thing. When do these guys report? These guys report. Okay, they report Wednesday before the open, right? Tiny floater. If they report a good number or give a good guide, maybe this thing gets a nice little pop. Could be a trading opportunity, but it also has a tendency to pop and flop. So you got to be careful with this thing. You got to look and see what kind of volume it's trading because it trades very thin, but worth at least having it on the radar for a trading opportunity, right? Okay. RAD, Rite Aid, I think. Let me pull this. Could be setting up for a reverse head and shoulders pattern. Did just have a nice run up into the $9 area, almost $10. Pulling back to the 50-day where you've got some potential support. You've got some potential price support here around 670 or so. This is a thicker stock, right? So thicker stock takes a lot to move this thing, but could be in an interesting spot. I'm not sure what the short position is on this. I'm going to look right now. Oh, actually, it's not as thick as I thought it was. It's actually got 51 million shares in the float. It looks like that is incorrect on TC2000. 26% short interest. So this actually could get a little squeezy if they were to give a good number and have a good guide. So we'll have to see how this plays out, but it's at an interesting spot for potential support. You could have a reverse head and shoulders pattern developing there. Worth keeping an eye on that one for a trading opportunity. Might move into earnings. They report Thursday before the open. I probably would not hold it through earnings, right? But could get a little action heading into earnings. So worth keeping an eye on that for a little short-term trading opportunity. KB Homes, as I said, they are reporting on Wednesday after the close, and we're getting a bit extended. We're at an area of potential resistance. These guys disappoint, or even if they report a good number, maybe that number is already priced in, right? So maybe keep that in mind. To pull back to the 50-day, $29.50, $29, $28.50, somewhere in that area. Maybe even $27 could be an interesting spot to look at this for. Oops. Hold on a second. 27.50, right? There's a pretty good area of price support in there, in that area. They report a good number. Maybe this thing's heading back up to test these recent highs, 38.60 or so. But let me see what the float is on KBH. And then the other stocks within the space. This KBH has got a, oops, could move in sympathy, like Beazer Homes, BZH. I actually missed a beautiful move in that thing. The thing was in the under $9 area and it's now $14. This got 78 million shares in the float. Not a big short interest, but I think KB Homes is worth keeping an eye on for the space in general. And Beazer Homes, that is also right at an area of potential resistance. Pulls back to the 1250 area, could be an interesting 1250 could be an interesting spot. Got a nice double bottom formation on Beazer Homes. I've definitely missed an opportunity here in that one, but I think it's worth keeping an eye on the space. BB BlackBerry, big turnaround story going on here. I have to say, every time these guys report, though, it seems like they beat the street, and gets a little pop for a minute, and then it pulls back. It just has not been able to find the mojo. It's at an interesting area of potential resistance. It does look like it's flagging right here. Let's see what these earnings do, but stochastics look like they're kind of curling lower. And then I think if it gets down to the 650 area, could be an interesting swing or long-term hold consideration if they give a good guide and they give a decent earnings report. I think they're actually in pretty good shape financially. Let me just take a look. BlackBerry. Yeah, they got a lot of cash, man. They got almost $1 billion. So I don't know. I think it's worth keeping an eye on it. It's a thicker stock. It's definitely more of a swing or long-term hold consideration. Not a big short interest, but almost 500 million shares in the float. I don't know. It's at least worth having on the radar. It gets down to the 650 area. Could be an interesting spot to take it for a bounce. CAMP, so, got an interesting look here. Had a big pop recently, pulling back, testing the 50-day. CAMP reports earnings on Thursday after the close. So kind of have a little double top going on there. $12 hollow seems to be acting as resistance. 1050, maybe this 1050 area could be an interesting spot for a bounce. Maybe it moves into earnings. I don't know. We'll have to see. But, it gets down to 1050. They report a good number. Actually got a pretty interesting looking pattern. Looking for a break over $12 with some conviction. Be breaking this longer term. Actually, it's already kind of broken a trend line here. Right? It broke this trend line. Maybe it comes back and tests 1050. Maybe it all comes all the way back and tests $10. I don't know. But it has a pretty interesting look there on the daily. Maybe wait until after earnings for a trading opportunity. Nike is always one I think you want to keep an eye on, just for the retail space. It does have kind of an interesting look here. It's above the 50-day. I think it's worth keeping an eye on. Not necessarily looking to trade Nike, but I think it's one that you do want to pay attention to for their earnings. And they report Tuesday after the close. MU for the space, for the sector, they're also reporting, right? Micron, and I think this one is worth keeping a close eye on. See just how it impacts the semiconductor space. Maybe we pull back down here to the 50-day moving average, see if that holds the support. There is a gap to fill way down here on Micron, so I don't know, but I think it's important to keep an eye on that name for their earnings, just to see how it impacts the sector. NEO is reporting Tuesday before the open, and I have to say it's kind of got an interesting look here, flagging right at the 50-day moving average. Now this one is a little bit thicker of a stock as well. It's Chinese electric car play. I think you have to wait till after earnings, but if they have a good earnings number, good guide, this thing could be in play. Worth keeping an eye on it for a trading opportunity. And the last one here is this AGTC, which reports Thursday after the close. Biotech name was consolidating, kind of flagging right here at the 200-day moving average, and pulled back a little bit on Friday. Maybe it's heading back down into this 250, 235 area. I don't know. It's at an area right now where it could act as support for a bounce. You're sitting at the 20-day. You got some potential price support. Maybe wait until earnings on this one. But if they have a decent number, there is a big gap to fill on the daily. Could break this trend line, get back above the 200-day. I don't know. RSI is curling lower. Relative strength is not looking all that great, so maybe they're going to disappoint. And if they take out these lows, that could be problematic for AGTC, but it's at least worth having on the radar. All right, and that is it for the free list of stocks to watch and the market overview. I think you need to be somewhat cautious. I think healthcare, consumer staples, and biotech kind of look like the most interesting, intriguing sectors to me right now. But that can change, right? That can change with a tweet. But I think we need to be somewhat cautious out there. Keep an eye on TVIX and UVXY for some volatility, short-term trading opportunities. Don't forget Monday interview with Maj. If you can make it. Try and make it if I can. If I can record it and get it back out, I will do that. If you can't make it, but try to make it. I think you'll learn quite a bit. All right, and pro members, I will have a full list of stocks to watch out for you in just about a half hour, 45 minutes. Got a couple more scans to do, and I'll get that right out. All right, I will see you all next week. Enjoy the rest of your weekend, and good luck trading next week.